The old crocodile was floating at the river's edge when a younger crocodile swam up next to him. "I've heard from many that you're the fiercest hunter in all of the river bottoms. Please, teach me your ways." Awoken from a nice long afternoon nap, the old crocodile glanced at the young crocodile with one of his reptilian eyes, said nothing, and then fell back asleep atop the water. Feeling frustrated and disrespected, the young crocodile swam off upriver to chase after some catfish, leaving behind a flurry of bubbles. "I'll show him," he thought to himself. Later that day, the young crocodile returned to the old crocodile, who was still napping, and began to brag to him about his successful hunt. "I caught 2 meaty catfish today. What have you caught? Nothing? Perhaps you're not so fierce after all." Unfazed, the old crocodile again looked at the young crocodile, said nothing, closed his eyes, and continued to float atop the water as tiny minnows munched away lightly at the algae on his underbelly. Again, the young crocodile was angry that he couldn't get a response from the elder, and he swam off a second time upstream to see what he could hunt. After a few hours of thrashing about, he was able to hunt down a small crane. Smiling, he kept the bird in his jaws and swam back to the old crocodile, adamant about showing him who the true hunter was. As the young crocodile rounded the bend, he saw the elder crocodile still floating in the same spot near the river's edge. However, something had changed. A large wildebeest was enjoying an afternoon drink just inches near the old crocodile's head. In one lightning-fast movement, the old crocodile bolted out of the water, wrapped his jaws around the great wildebeest, and pulled him under the river. Awestruck, the young crocodile swam up with the tiny bird hanging from his mouth and watched as the old crocodile enjoyed his 500 pounds meal. The young crocodile asked him, "Please, tell me, how did you do that?" Through mouthfuls of wildebeest, the old crocodile finally responded, "I did nothing. When I first built my company, I was a lot like the young crocodile, believing that I always had to be doing something to get results. Back then, if someone had told me that I would see greater results by spending more time doing nothing, I would have rolled my eyes and continued to chip away at my 16-hour day of work. I thought that in order to be successful, I had to constantly be building, working, growing, and developing the next thing, whatever that thing was. All of us have a problem with being busy, but being busy and being successful are not the same thing. And if we were to make doing nothing more of a priority, we might find ourselves catching more wildebeest rather than measly catfish. It worked for me, and I hope it can work for you too. But doing less or nothing at all is easier said than done, especially in a society that suffers from extreme busyness. Let's take a closer look at our unhealthy obsession with staying busy. Mankind has struggled with busyness since the beginning of time, or at least since 425 BC when Homer walked the earth. The Odyssey tells the tale of the lotus eaters, strange people who sloth around all day long eating lotus and doing nothing. What was stranger than fiction was that these people were content with their lives. Homer wrote that after some of Odysseus's crew ate the lotus eaters' lotus fruit, they became like the lotus eaters, content, relaxed, and a bit lethargic. Terrified that if all of his men ate the lotus fruit, they would be unmotivated to return home, Odysseus ordered the affected men to be tied to the ship's benches and for the ship to set sail immediately. It's interesting, Odysseus's reaction to this feeling of doing nothing sounds similar to the corporate CEO, the startup founder, and the collegiate football coach we know today, hardcore workaholics that despise anything that might allude to a sense of complacency. Though They, of course, are just the tip of a much larger societal iceberg that feels frozen with fear at the thought of doing nothing. The world as a whole now measures value in terms of busyness versus quality of work. In many ways, it has become something of a status symbol to be busy. How many times have you heard or had a conversation like this? "How have you been lately, Mark?" "Oh man, just insanely busy." "That's awesome to hear, man. Keep killing it." We've grown to subconsciously measure a person's worth based off how many hours they work, how much is on their plate, and put simply, whether or not they are running around like a chicken with their head cut off. In Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, he pokes fun at this idea by facetiously saying that if you want a promotion, you should appear to be more busy by working longer hours, scrambling around, and constantly answering emails. But sooner or later, all of us have to ask ourselves what our mission is. Is it to be the busiest, or is it to make the most impact? And what's fascinating is that when we look at some of the greatest minds to grace planet Earth, we see an interesting commonality. They all make time for doing nothing. Making time in your life to do nothing can be challenging, especially during the work week, where we are constantly pummeled and bombarded with meetings, notifications, and an ever-growing list of tasks. Busy founders have started implementing Think Weeks into their annual schedules. Week-long periods they spend reflecting, reading, thinking, and living outside the all-encapsulating world that is running a business. While young founders like Skillshare's Mike Carnjanaprakorn have adopted this practice, as well as big names like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Tim Ferriss, it was Bill Gates who originally made the Think Week famous. For many years while running Microsoft, Gates would retreat into week-long Think Weeks, twice a year, not vacations, but actual periods of time dedicated to doing nothing. Gates was so adamant about his Think Weeks that family, friends, and Microsoft employees were banned. Today, Gates attributes much of Microsoft's success to the big ideas and concepts he stumbled upon while doing nothing. You don't necessarily have to ban family and friends to retreat into a Think Week, though. Take me as an example. Every year, I take at least a full week off from my company and head back to my hometown to help my parents with the olive harvest. All thoughts of startup growth or conversion rates slip away when you're picking olives. It's meditative and calming. I know that olive picking won't land me at the top of TechCrunch, but it's a personal measure of success. And somehow, some of my best ideas come to me during this period. For someone who can't take an entire week off of work once a year to do nothing, I recommend taking a slightly different approach, embracing the digital Sabbath. On either Saturday or Sunday, force yourself to step away from all forms of technology, a practice known as a digital Sabbath. Shut off your smartphone and hide it in your closet. Power down the laptop and slide it under your bed. And try with all your might to refrain from binge-watching Netflix. Give your brain space to think by stepping away from the daily grind and doing nothing. Your mind will have time to stumble upon new ideas and further process old ones. You may find the success that results from this practice to be similar to that of the old crocodile at the beginning of this video. While we tell ourselves we can achieve more by scrambling, sometimes it's better to close our eyes and just float and wait until the wildebeest shows up.
When I was a teenager, I spent my entire free time playing video games, mostly League of Legends, but also Call of Duty, Age of Empires, or Minecraft. This wasn't a casual hobby. It was an obsession. I would come home from school, toss my backpack into the corner, boot up my computer, and play. Often late into the night. School was secondary. As I got older and played fewer games, I felt more and more daft. Others had spent their teenage years going out, experiencing things, getting to know themselves, and building relationships. And then there was me. I had spent my young years commanding cartoon figures in virtual worlds. Adding it all up, I must have spent over 10,000 hours playing video games. 10,000 hours. That amounts to 20 hours per week for 10 years, or say 40 hours per week for 5 years. 10,000 hours is also the time it takes to master a skill, at least according to one controversial study. If I hadn't played video games, I could have mastered the violin, written a book, or competed in professional bike races, but I didn't. And the toothpaste of time can't be put back into its tube. So, ostensibly, those 10,000 hours were frittered, flushed down the drain, and downright wasted. Right? After the video games went, YouTube came. It was around this time that I discovered Casey Neistat, a YouTuber who used to upload daily videos while also running a business, a family, and marathons. One particular video hit me like a domino block in the face. In that video, Casey talks about time management. He starts by quoting Seneca, says that time is his most valuable resource, and explains that he tries not to waste a single moment. The only time I really get bummed out or depressed, Casey says, is when I'm not being productive, is when I'm not accomplishing or doing or contributing in any way. Nothing makes me less happy than relaxation and sitting around with nothing to do. He then sketches out how he structures his day by dividing his time into 6 broad categories: free time, sleep, work, exercise, family, and fun. I watched in awe as Casey broke down how he accomplishes so many things in the same 24 hours we all get each day. Here's his average day. Exercise, 3 hours. Work, 14 hours. Family, 3 hours. Sleep, 4 hours. Free time, 0 hours. The video left an impression on me. Most of all, I remember feeling guilty because, unlike Casey, I wasn't spending my time on worthwhile activities. I was watching YouTube. And so I became intrigued by the notion that time is a resource you can bend to your will, that you can squeeze more time out of your day, granted you apply the right pressure. I embarked on the project Waste No Time. Soon, my days started to look a lot like Casey's. I would wake up, exercise for an hour, work 10 hours, walk home, work another 2 hours, and sleep. Everything was geared toward work. Even in the hours I didn't work, I tried to recharge as quickly as possible so I could get back to work and work harder. That was it. That was my life. And yet, ironically, I still felt like I wasn't doing enough. I would write an article, read a book, have a good conversation, and think to myself, this can't be it. Surely there must be more. I'm still not getting enough out of my time. I grew very sensitive to each second I didn't spend productively, feeling compelled to turn those seconds into more fruitful endeavors. When I caught myself lying in bed, dabbling on my phone, I felt frustrated and guilty, beating myself up because I wasn't improving, creating, or contributing. I also tried to hoard time. I remember one evening when I stood on a mountaintop, looked down into the valley below me, and watched the most beautiful sunset unfold. Streaks of orange and purple pierced the clouds. A warm breeze caressed my cheeks. Crickets chirped in the distance, the scent of lavender. What I recall most from that moment, though, is how intensely I tried to bottle it all up. I was overly aware of how quickly this moment would pass. I didn't want to waste it. I wanted to enjoy it, savor it, make it last, make it last, make it last. Paradoxically, whenever I tried to alchemize time into fulfillment, what I gained instead was restlessness, worthlessness, and anxiety. I wasn't managing my time. Time was managing me. In a weird and wicked way, Project Waste No Time failed me on both ends. Slouchy activities infused me with regret because I wasn't feeling productive. Meanwhile, productive activities infused me with anxiety because nothing felt good enough. I was constantly striving toward a future state, a goal, a milestone, a feeling of bliss. And yet, in the rare moments I actually attained these states, the sand grains of satisfaction slipped right through my fingers. The irony was almost comical. The more I thought about having wasted time, the more I lived in the past. Conversely, the more I thought about not wasting time, the more I lived in the future. The irony is, of course, that I never arrived in the present. So, what's there to do? The only way out of this cul-de-sac, I suppose, is to make a move that might be considered horrendously bizarre in our post-industrial society. Intentionally wasting time. As strange as it may sound, wasting time is an art that can be mastered, just like baking delicious cakes or drawing photorealistic sketches. In many Buddhist traditions, wasting time is even an important ritual. Tantric Buddhism, for instance, practices the poignant ceremony of constructing sand mandalas. Over hundreds of hours, monks carefully place millions of dyed sand grains to create a giant artwork of complex patterns and images. Once the mandala is finished, the monks destroy it by sweeping the sand toward the mandala's center until all that remains is one colorful pile of dust. Disciples of neoliberalism might jump in at this point, shouting at the monks, "Wait, don't destroy it. You can sell that as art." But of course, the point of mandalas is precisely their impermanence, their futility, their pointlessness. Indeed, says the Australian philosopher W.D. Josky, the very pointlessness of an activity can contribute to its pleasure, making it more truly play. We've all inherited an idea of what counts as wasted time and what doesn't. For me, it's the idea that time is only well spent when it creates future value. Every second must count for something. And yet, this assumption is absurd on several levels. If everything must count for something, there must be an ultimate end goal that justifies all these activities. Of course, some people's end goal might be to earn money, status, or happiness. But whenever I tried adopting one of these end goals, I couldn't help but wonder, and what's that for? The logic is also flawed on an experiential level. I, for one, have never felt at peace while working toward something. The few moments in which I was truly at peace occurred when I was not progressing toward professional goals, not doing something useful, not pursuing a means to an end. Rather, the peaceful moments were the wasteful moments, the moments in which I sat on a park bench, walked through a dense forest, or idly lay in a meadow. This is not to say that all future-directed actions are futile. They're quite fun and necessary to what we call life. And yet, I'm convinced that spending some of my lifetime wastefully is the only way not to waste it. If I hadn't wasted 10,000 hours playing video games, I might have never discovered what's important to me now. I also might have had much less fun in my teens. Who knows? I like to think that it was all necessary. The crux is that time is not a resource to be spent, but an actuality to be experienced. Time is not something we can waste, spend, hoard, or have. Much rather, it's something we are. From this perspective, wasting time, existing purposelessly, carries cosmic importance. It's a state of being where our essence isn't bound to optimization, systematization, or subsidization. It's a necessity. Thinking about it now, I really should stop writing these lines and waste some of my precious time